Hello. Hi, Lydia.
Hello.
Hey, Happy New Year.
Hi. Here.
I'm trying to invite,
Wait.
I will invite Sadia now.
Okay.
Okay. She said she's online, so she should be there soon.
I just realized that I lost my wallet.
Oh,
I'm really pissed off.
all the documents and everything.
Yeah. And bank cards.
Oh, hello.
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 Hi, hi. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Happy New Year.
Of course, of course. No. How do you guys pronounce your names, by the way?
It's
I'm sorry?
it's Lydia and Vitodas.
Mm-hmm.
How do you pronounce your names?
Maybe
Lydia. It's Lydia.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Vitodas.
Okay, we told this. Okay.
And you
So
pronounce
mine
it
is Sadia.
Lydia,
And
right?
yours. Okay.
Sadia, yeah.
Sadia.
So
Great.
really
Okay, so
pleasure to
can
meet
you
you.
hear me fine? Oh,
Vitotas?
I think there's some chat.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that the screen changes very fast according to who speaks right now. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit messy.
Okay.
Can
So
we
maybe,
have a fixed screen? I don't know how to do it.
Mm,
I think from my computer I can choose one screen, but I don't know about you.
I don't think I don't know if you can change it. I think it's when each of us speaks, then we have the view. So maybe we can ask one person, then the other
But
response, and so yeah.
okay, but if you choose one participant from down, it stays on the screen.
Oh.
So now you speak, but I have chosen Sadia, so she's on screen.
Yeah, that works. It works for me too. Okay, great.
Okay,
Okay.
great. It works for everybody?
Yeah, for me
Yeah.
it works.
Okay. Do you also have New Year in Pakistan or no?
Do I have what? Happy
If
New
you
Year?
have New Year,
Yeah, we did. We
yeah?
did. Lots of fireworks and parties and all of that last night. Yeah.
Okay. But today you were working.
Yeah. I'm a journalist,
Yeah,
so I don't.
I'm a journalist, so I don't.
I didn't hear the last part.
So I work at a newspaper as an editor. So we have to go in every day, even public holidays.
Ah,
We
okay.
don't get off. Yeah. No days off for us.
Okay.
Great. Okay, maybe we want to start by you presenting Girls at Dhabas the way you wish to present it.
Okay. Okay. Um.
Or
Sure.
yourself, you
So
can also say something about yourself.
about myself, okay, so I'm 24 and I moved back to Karachi, Pakistan this year. I was living abroad for the past 4 years. I lived in the States, then I lived in Nepal, then I lived in Morocco, and then I went back to the States and then I moved back home. And I'm a really big traveler and I love cities especially. And one of the frustrations I always had with Pakistan was the fact that I could never experience my city the way I had experienced other cities because there's a certain amount of freedom you get when you're not in your own, society and neighborhood. Like even over here, when I'm in my own neighborhood, everyone's just like, oh, she's that person's daughter and she's roaming around and that's not okay. But if I'm in a different neighborhood, then it's okay. And so, living abroad, I kind of just learn how to be on my own and that I can be out and about without having to worry and being so paranoid all the time. When I moved back, I made more of an effort to start doing that in my own city, and got a few friends, mostly guys who just are out all the time. And the other part that's probably relevant is that I went to an all women's college in America. So what ended up happening there was it's a very international school, and there were a lot of South Asians specifically there. So a lot of girls from India, a lot of girls from Nepal, a lot of girls from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Sri Lanka. And we had this sort of a community that formed between us that was just a result of coming from similar worlds in a sense and sharing the same language also. And a lot of these friendships happened over chai because we would gather and one of us would be like, oh, I miss chai from home. And so chai is something you get in all of these countries, right? And we'd sit down and more women would come and go, and we'd spend hours just talking about home and different things. And obviously Mount Holyoke being a very feminist institution and very consciously so, a lot of our conversations would revolve around how to sort of reconcile everything we're studying with our own homes, because at the end of the day, the intellectual conversations are great, but they're so far from the reality that most of us live in South Asia. So, there was this whole thing, oh, we'll do something when we get back, and we don't know what, but at least in our own lives. And so a lot of the girls running the Girls at Dhabas page and the initiative in Pakistan are from the same college, but different cities. And the ones who moved back are involved in some capacity or the other. For Girls at Dhabas specifically, it started off pretty. I've told you about this before. It was very, it wasn't a planned sort of thing. It just kind of happened. But what was happening behind the scenes was that I had started putting up photos of myself at Dhabas, and I was just sharing them on my Instagram feed and my Facebook feed, and just kind of out of curiosity and also just to see how people would react. And it started some really interesting conversations. But one of the things that happened was that other girls started posting photos of themselves in spaces that are not traditionally associated with women's spaces. And once that happened, we thought, okay, there's something going on here, because if you walk around Karachi or Lahore for that matter, you literally think there are no women, because it's just so rare. Like my sister and I have started counting them. It's like 50 to 1, sometimes 25 to 1 maybe. It's very disturbing, but it's so normal that people don't find it disturbing anymore, right? So sorry, I lost my train of thought. So I was saying that yes, a lot of the conversation that I was having on Facebook, and we started talking about how it's become so normalized that we don't even see it's a problem anymore. And then a couple of girls were like, "Oh, why don't we, go to a dhaba together, or why don't we do this together?" And this is all very small scale, right, within my network and within my communities. But just to start the conversation there, and then I went with a couple of girls to a dhaba or to some other place, and we thought, okay, we can keep doing this if no one else and just us, and keep sharing our experiences through social media and see where that goes. I think it took off once the Indian newspapers were the first to get in touch with us. They have some similar stuff going on there. Why Loiter is one of them. And once we got that little bit of publicity, then more people were sort of paying attention to what is going on here. And again, it's not that it's a new idea. So essentially, the group is just about women's participation in public space. And when we say public space, we don't mean shopping malls and we don't mean supermarkets, because those are sort of designated curated spaces. They're not public in the same sense. Or like gated communities, which are very common in Pakistan. You have a lot of residential neighborhoods that will be like, completely walled from the outside, and they'll have everything inside, like a swimming pool and a market and everything you need. So you don't even need to step out of that community. But that's not a public space, even though women will walk around there and stuff. But it's. So we wanted to kind of bring attention to the everyday spaces, and since sharing our experiences on social media was bringing attention to this problem, we thought, okay, this is a good way to just keep moving this forward by sharing experiences of women in the streets in Pakistan or in other countries. What has that been like? Or even if they haven't had experiences on the streets, what is that like? Or why haven't they? And it's not like we're trying to rally everyone to get out, but I think a lot of it is, there's a lot of internal fear that we have, which I realize because now I roam around the city all the time, and I take all sorts of public transport, and everything that I was always warned about when I was younger, And I don't come from an upper class family. I come from a very middle class family. But I was always told, girls don't go do this alone, or something will happen to you, and something will happen to you. But it's just like if you're never out there, you never really learn how to navigate the streets. So that's like one thing that we're driving at, is that women can do this, and we can help each other do this by sharing our experiences, sharing our strategies, or facilitating each other in any way.
I want to ask, you said the first photos you posted of yourself, were they already political or they were more personal? Did you
They
have?
were very personal. They were mostly personal because within my friend groups also, I had been getting, people say, and it's really interesting actually. The first people to resist and sort of tell you that this is a horrible idea are people who are the closest to you. So like, the immediate boys in my circle were like, "Oh, you're crazy. Why are you doing this?" and drawing attention to yourself. And so it wasn't like that was the first time I went to a dhaba. I'd been going to dhabas and I'd been hanging out on the streets for a while, but it was sort of in reaction to that. I think that no, I'm going to do this, and here's a picture of me at a dhaba. Um, yeah. Because it was a private, right? It wasn't I didn't put it up on a public forum anyway.
I also wanted to ask, why did you go to this all-female university? How did you come to the idea?
It was just a stroke of luck. I applied to a different university. I applied to Hampshire College. It's a super alternative school, and I wanted to go there. And this college was near that college, and my academic advisor was like, just apply and you'll get in. Because a lot of people from Pakistan, for some reason, get in there every year. So I just applied on a whim, and I got a scholarship. So I was going there with the intention that I would transfer out in a year because I didn't want to go to an all-women's college. And then once I got there, I just loved it. It's not a real space. I admit it's not like, it's also created space, but I think the sort of relationships I've made with women in that space wouldn't have been possible outside of it because of how, and it's not like it's segregated. It's not like that. It's just that there's a lot more emphasis on, I think, creating community within women, which is something that our feminisms often forget. Is we get so self-defensive, and we're constantly trying to explain ourselves and constantly trying to go like, no, but we are this, but we are not. That we kind of forget that the real groundwork is within each other. So I think that way Mount Holyoke was pretty life-changing because I hadn't thought of either feminism that way before, or even a lot of ideas about gender that I was exposed to there. Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask, I also wrote you in the email, you had a post where you said that maybe feminism, what it needs is rather exclusion, or maybe better to say it's the right for exclusion, while there's the opposite side that you try by bringing women to public spaces rather for inclusion. So I don't know if there is a contradiction inside of that, or if it's different to say you have exclusion and you have the right for exclusion, the choice for it, and you can take
Yeah,
it on.
yeah, so we actually have this conversation a lot within the team because we don't all agree on it, and some of us are super anti women-only spaces. But the way I've come to think about it is, as far as public space goes, yeah, in Pakistan it's very gendered, but it's not even a matter of gender anymore. Public space is just generally shrinking for everyone, and even if you're a man, but religion is a big thing here. So if you're a man from a different religion, then you're ousted from public space in different ways. So as far as public space goes, that is for inclusion. But I think the exclusion argument, it's not contradictory because that's really a private space we're talking about, where the sort of within the intra-group community takes place. That doesn't have to be, like it. You can't have that, and I mean, you can't not have that and also have an inclusive model. For example, I'll give you the example of dialogues we've been holding. So we have these monthly, just sort of like in the park or in some public space, we ask people to come and we pick up with some topic and talk about and do some interactive activities. And what has started happening, and this really frustrates us, is a lot of men show up and we do set some ground rules, but often the conversation, it ends up in the whole, getting super self-defensive about experiences. A woman will share something and then a man will be like, oh, no, no, this doesn't happen. Not all men are like this. And it's like, okay, but that's not the point. At least hear us out, right? And often men take up space that they really need to learn not to. So I think in those settings, that's where we need, sort of women's only space. And we can define women broadly. We don't have to, I don't mean cis women but then again, we're talking about Pakistan where these ideas are so far off. Like if I say cis woman to someone, they'll be like, what are you talking about? So a recent other dialogue that took place was, it was by a different group, but a couple of us went. And what they did was, this was in Lahore, they had a discussion and they were talking about misogyny within the left. Very upper class, very elite circles, and what about the misogyny that takes place there? What about the sexism there? But they set a rule where the men were allowed to come, but they weren't allowed to talk during the conversation. So they made a circle around the women, and they were listening throughout. And I think that is something that would fall more into the whole exclusion model. But that said, that's still men are there. I think we still need spaces for women, and especially in South Asia, because there really aren't any spaces where women come together without some surveillance or without some sort of. Do you get what I'm saying? It's
But
very.
where do women meet? I mean, they meet at home or they meet at women's cafes.
At home, and when you're at home, there's like tons of other people there, so you're never really alone. I mean, I was thinking about it the other day. My mom is a housewife, and she's never worked her whole life, and her days, she wakes up and she's home. And it's not like she hates her life, she loves it, but she's just home the whole day. And the only people she meets are the neighbors who either come home or she goes to their home. And it's not even that she wants to go outside, but I feel like we need these spaces for women because we need to realize how we've been conditioned and what sort of personal challenges that we have, and the one that we impose on each other also, because a lot of times your biggest enemies are the women, right? They're the ones who are like, no, 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 sorry, I don't go to a dhaba, and you're giving a bad name to all of us or whatever.
It is actually interesting to hear that, because when we presented your story to our schools, the community, and because maybe we also need to have short introduction, that we all started our project as a architectural design studio, and we were supposed to design a housing in density, and Karachi was the case proposed by the teachers, and we didn't have a direct link to Karachi and the problem, so we started to look for some society or what's happening, and we come up to the role of women, and we were touched by the situation, and then we found you guys, and then we presented, and professors just loved it, and one of the interesting links that they made was the link between the Martin Luther King movement and you guys with their sit-ins. So it's like the sit-ins were a peaceful movement to go to a bar and just to sit in, and you were doing a really similar thing in also a very peaceful way. But the problem with their movement, as some say, is that it was hard to convince Afro-American people to do that, because it's already like a norm, and that you have to fight not against the people who are doing the discrimination, but who are in the discrimination, because it's already like a casualty. So also, it's my question is that how is it with your current movement? Is it like extending, or like do you have new people to join? Like, is it hard to convince, or is it how is it going with that case?
So most of the team members are people who, some of my friends who were just, a lot of these conversations were happening with them, and when Girls at Dhabas started, they had a lot of input with it. Like they were like, oh, we should, make it. But some of the members are just people who reached out and said they were interested, and we ended up meeting for chai at a dhaba, and we found each other fantastic, and they joined. There's a lot of resistance from other, like, the thing with feminism in South Asia is that the majority of the people don't function in English, right? So the whole discourse of feminism is happening in a very certain class, and even within that class, there are different like groups and NGOs and stuff, but they're also not on the same page about basic feminist goals. Like even abortion would be a huge thing. Like you might notice we don't post a lot of stuff about we're definitely pro-choice, but we have to think about how we pitch it, because then the whole religion things comes in. So the bigger struggle is like meeting women who are very progressive and very open-minded, but in other ways they'll be like yes, I'm an independent working woman, but why do I need public space when private space is already there for me? And it's just you reach this roadblock with people who you thought it would be easiest to talk to, and a lot of these women, I won't say a lot, it isn't like the majority of people are against it or don't like the idea of it. In fact, I think more the majority of people have written in support or shown up in support. But from the people who've criticized, the other big thing is that they think it's a very trivial thing that we're doing, and it's of very little consequence, and we're just making a joke out of feminism. So that's also a pretty popular view in a lot of a lot of eminent feminists who are names in Pakistan. So I think that, but again, like I said before, we could get stuck in converting people or go out on a mission or a campaign to explain exactly what it is. But up till now, just like kind of continuing doing our thing, and the people who want to engage with us, engaging with them, and then creating these spaces where women talk to each other, I think it has really helped. And I have had, we call them small victories, like, one day one of us will come back and be like, oh, I talked to this girl in my office today, and, yesterday she was saying this, but today she said, oh, I read that post and I thought about it. And so, very small scale. I don't know, did I answer your question? I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, but I can actually see that it's probably the hardest part is to convince people to about the idea.
I also think it's a little bit problem of realizing your rights and your responsibilities as a citizen, because not only women, everybody has the right to public space, but also some responsibilities. And we even don't claim our right to go out in parks, or we don't take care of the streets in front of our houses, because we don't think this is our extended home, but our city is our extended home, and we should take responsibility of that.
And I mean, you've done your research on Karachi, but even visually, it's a very different city because of, it's unsafe and everyone's really paranoid and everything. So the average wall in a like bungalow or a house will be like so high that you can't see the house. Then it'll have barbed wire on top. So already like places like gardens or spaces that are supposed to be open are not open at all. And then when you have sidewalks, they'll either be super thin, or if it's outside a house, the guard will be standing there and he's like, you can't walk here. They'll remove benches because the homeless people sleep there, so the government has started removing the benches. It's just a ridiculous thing, and for women, it's way worse. Like I really want to show you all some visuals of me just walking around and showing you what the street looks like. 'Cause it's just like Man Planet. It's not,
Yeah.
There's that aspect too. So women don't associate themselves with public space at all, and especially upper class women, I think, although they have greater access in a sense, right? Because there's so much, when you have class privilege, you can get away with a lot more. But the upper class women are the ones who are constantly chaperoned and will have a driver and a guard both in the car with them, with a big rifle and a gun. So all of that also plays into it because it's such a hyper surveilled city. And everyone's just, kind of closing themselves off and saying this is mine and this is yours and this is where the boundary is. That public space is just already it's such a battle that when you bring women into it, it's like, oh shit.
When we presented the project 2 weeks ago in Brussels, there was a guest critic from Pakistan, Arif Hassan. He also writes in newspapers.
Yeah, I know of him.
Yeah, I want to tell you 3 comments he made. One of them was, for example, he said that there are some like family parks in Pakistan, and that you can go as a family there, and you can go as a single woman, but you cannot go as a single man, do you think that this is all? I mean, how would feminism, or how would you judge it as a public space, or do you think it's not what you
Park?
want? It's like
Parks?
a gated park because yeah, it's only for families and single women.
Yeah. So parks, also shopping malls on weekends, and movies. So if you're a single man, you can't go into a movie without a girl with you or family member. And I have had boys say, what about this and what about our rights and isn't this sexism? And I don't think that such a thing as reverse sexism exists. And I think you have to look at the root of the problem. So the reason single men aren't allowed alone is because so that the place is made more safe for women, right? So again, it isn't discriminatory. It's discriminating against them, yes, but it's also saying that, oh, we need to do this to protect women and sort of take, because their bodies are not their decisions and they are the government and the public decision, and so that they don't get harassed, we'll just make this safe space where only families come and all the boys are let out. So it's like they're both victims of patriarchy, but I think this is just a case of, because they live in a patriarchal system, it's working against them, but actually it's working for them because of patriarchy it's happening. I know that sounds really confusing, but it makes sense in my head. I can explain it again.
But it sustains somehow the situation and doesn't improve. It remains
Sorry?
separated, and it sustains the situation and the
Yeah.
victimization.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that. Like, I don't think single men need to be let out. I think everyone should have access, and we all just need to learn how to be civil and not, harass each other. But in Pakistan, it seems that every time there's a problem of violence against women, or there's a problem of any sort of women's issues, their solution to the problem is, oh, just take the women out of the picture, or just create a separate space for them. So you'll notice, if like in recent years there have been more and more schools and even colleges now that are just for women, because they're just segregating like everything further and further. So that's not really helping anyone. It's not helping the women who are further sort of getting away from society in these controlled spaces, and it's not helping men. I mean, I think about how even just growing up in Pakistan, because of the way gender works here, men and boys and girls don't interact the way they should in a healthy manner in other countries. So boys are growing up with this idea of a woman as this, they don't really. I mean, I'm generalizing, obviously, but you grow up as seeing a woman as this thing that is, in another space, and you see how other men interact with her, and you do it, but there are no human connections. Like, I've lived in cities where I've been, sitting at a coffee shop, and you start talking to a person next to you because they're reading a book or something, regardless of their gender. But in Pakistan, that would never happen, even inside coffee shops or inside. But especially out in the street, you'll never approach a stranger. You're discouraged from doing so. Other people freak out if you talk to them. It is not.
But even between men or just women?
I don't know about between men. No, I think between men it's fine, because I wouldn't really know. But no, you'd have to ask a guy. It's definitely a gender thing for sure. So if I'm walking, for example, with a bunch of men, right, and someone wants to ask directions, and the person is a guy, they will never ask me. They'll ask the guy next to me. If I'm sitting at a restaurant and we're waiting for the bill, then the waiter will always ask the guys. But then that happens everywhere in the world. When we enter, waiters shake hands. Even at dhabas, the dhaba wala will shake hand, but they'll never shake my hand. It's just
What
like
happens?
I'm
What
supposed.
happens? What happens if you talk to strangers on to male strangers on the street? If
Oh,
you're
I do,
alone,
I do. Nothing has happened to me yet. I mean, everyone's been super nice, and they usually surprise. But um, I don't know. It comes easily to me now because I'm not as self-conscious as I used to be. But I talk to rickshawalas often. I talk to the dhaba-walas when I can, especially when I'm alone. I think it's easier to approach people. But then again, there have been instances where I've approached people when I'm alone, and then they'll assume I'm either a sex worker or like I'm interested in something else, and so let's go home. And um, after so in Karachi, we've started walking around the streets at night, say after like 11 p.m. at night, and sex workers are usually present at these particular intersections. And interestingly, most of them are trans women. So, so there's a very, not a culture. What's the word for it? Like that's the industry. It's mostly trans women and then women, but the ones out on the street are mostly trans women. So I was walking once with two friends. This was actually last week, and we passed a bunch of trans women and we said hi to them, and we're walking forward. Then this car stops, and it stops by them and talked to them, and then we were a little, ahead, and then the car stopped again, and these three guys just like kind of looked at us and up and down and slowed down, and then went away. And you don't see any other women throughout the night walk for like 4 hours. Yeah.
Does it also have to do with the time? I mean, in the morning
Yeah,
it's more appropriate.
yeah, of course. After, I think shops close here around 10 o'clock at night, and after that you won't see a woman unless she's with a guy or if she's with a guard with a gun in his hand. Yeah.
Okay, the other thing what Arif Hassan said is that what you do is rather very, very class related because you often see, I mean, in the lower income settlements, for example, neighborhoods, you always see women outside chatting to each other, but you don't see it in the middle and upper class neighborhoods. Do you
Yeah,
also?
I would.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think in fact, lower class women, also because of the way their houses are built and the way the community lives, right? It's a shared space. It just functions differently. Also because more women are working in the lower class because they have to work, they have more mobility. But the public space gender problem is mostly, I think, middle class and upper class. Loiter, the book I was telling you about, explains it really brilliantly. They talk about this idea of middle class morality, like the middle class is the one that determines what the sort of moral code of society is. And if you see in Karachi, most of the women who are discouraged from going out, all of this it's a middle class thing very much. This whole idea of respectability and okay, so that woman is from the lower class, so it's okay for her to be out because what. Sorry, I was about to speak in Urdu, but that's also true for men as well because you will see more a larger diversity of men on the streets, but again, you won't see as many upper class men as you see lower class men. So occasionally I'll see, like at a dhaba, it's still a different, it depends a lot on the location for the dhaba space specifically, but it's public space is definitely more dominated by the lower class. As far as the problem, so I agree with Arif Hassan on this. I think it's marked by class, but I think we have to take ownership for the class we're in. And then the thing is that middle and upper class women who are, claim to be more progressive and claim to be feminists, like a lot of people in my circles, but actually they have greater restrictions on their mobility and greater surveillance because of their class, right? Because then what happens is the lower class man becomes a sort of demon, right? Where you, the upper class woman, has to be protected from that lower class man because he might harass you, right? So another big hypocrisy we have is that although sexual abuse and all of this stuff is so common within the upper class and within the middle class, no one will ever talk about that, and all of those stories will be just sort of pushed, away that, oh, we don't have this problem. And when it happens and when it involves like someone from the lower class, then it becomes a big deal. The lower class is out to protect the woman from the upper class, right? So that also becomes a way, I think, of excluding the lower class man from public space. So if there is a public space where there are women from a upper class, then it's like the same thing with how boys won't be allowed. Like, oh, you're making mistakes. Women are not like our men; they're out to get. But Arif Hassan is probably that. I think at the end of the day, public space is still more gendered, more marked by gender than by class, at least in Karachi. And so it's not an issue that's just an issue of, I mean, it is an issue that is true across classes. And as far as he said that, yeah, in lower classes women might be out more, but even then, it's not as much as, like, just because it's a little better than another segment of society doesn't mean that it's okay, right? There's still a lot more work we have to do. And the way we look at Girls at Dhabas is that you have to start with the community you know best and the one that's more familiar to you. Also, because we have a certain amount of privilege because of our class, why aren't we out in these public spaces, right? That we, like, we can sit here and be like, oh, but I don't know, like, we can go out because, we're from the upper class, and like, I don't know, that argument just doesn't make sense to me, that just because, like, I don't know, I'm trying to say, give me a minute. Um, like, okay, so one of the comments we got once was that, you are very visibly, like the way I dress, for example. I'm marked by class by the way I dress, and since I'm very visibly from a middle upper class, I can get away with being in public space, and so it's not a big deal. But then my counter argument to that is, yes, but at the end of the day, just because one woman from an upper class gets away with it doesn't mean that it's a norm, right? I'm still an exception to the norm. And why aren't more women from our community owning their cities? It's your right as a citizen. And why is the upper class and the middle class also creating, like, these artificial spaces every time they want public spaces? So I think Arif Hassan and I probably agree on that. Hmm. Also, please feel free to interrupt me if I'm rambling, because sometimes I talk a lot.
It's okay. But do you want to ask something, or should I continue?
Okay, there were maybe to continue with there was one thing that we really wanted to know your opinion about, is that we had this idea of kind of lack of visibility to the domestic space of women, and well, we kind of face that okay, girls at Dabas are already taking care of public space, but well, what we also do in our studio, we need to focus on the housing, and we had this idea that if you first start from housing, from home, then you can transform this message to the public space. So we thought of okay, what could we do to the house, to the home, and we first had this idea of creating more visibility to what women do, what normally. Well, we researched some material. I don't know how true or not, but like if women are usually taking care of if let's say house women are taking care of certain things. Maybe if we invite men to do the same thing, so they switch roles, or like they share spaces together. So we invite more men to the naturally preoccupied women's space. So we had some sketch proposals of like creating some shared spaces in home. So then afterwards we can go into the bigger and bigger scales. But already doing this in already existing in blocks. So the first one we did was Lydia, what was it called, this housing block? The one
Fahad Square.
Exactly, Fahad Square. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but because it was one of the ones we had the accessibility in terms of plans and layout, and we have sent you some proposals. I don't know if you remember. Could you
you did. I haven't had a chance to look at them. Sorry. I will do that. I'll go through them.
Yeah, maybe we can share.
Can you share it now on the screen?
Yeah, I can share it on my screen. It is the thing that we would like to know your opinion as a local. Could it work in Karachi in terms of context, in terms of culture, in terms of financial, also in terms of class? Because we are discussing that now this problem is more, maybe it's more logical to address this to the upper and middle class housing, because if we say that the lower class is already using quite a lot this public space.
Sharing.
But
I want
but
to add something to that though. I mean, it's true that the lower class uses public space more than the upper class, but even then, the lower class isn't using because if you think about a place like parks, right?
yeah,
Not all parks in Karachi are free, and a lot of these parks, they don't allow all sorts of people in it. So basically they discriminate based on class, so they can just like for example, this sounds really silly, but there's a lot of places, public places, where people won't be allowed wearing slippers, right? And that's a very class thing in Karachi, because slippers are your sort of every man's everyday man's shoes, and you can't just wear them in public.
We lost here.
yes.
Sleeper is a bad word.
No, just a connection. I hope we can come back. Meanwhile, I will find the Hassan Square, maybe.
Yeah, are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay. Mm. Yeah, okay, are you sharing the proposal?
Moment.
Are you sharing the proposal?
Yes, for a moment.
Huh. You were going to share your screen with the sketches or the proposal?
Yeah, one moment.
Okay. Also, how did you guys find out about Girls at Dhabas? I don't know if I asked you that
Maybe
before.
Lydia can explain a little bit.
What did you say?
Lydia?
We, I don't know, we're just, first we found out that the difficult or the differentiated situation between men and women. Sadia, are you there? No.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, the conversation broke off, so I didn't hear what you
But Girls at Dhabas. Searching, browsing, and the exclusion of women in Pakistan, and then we found some articles,
Oh, okay.
and then and your posts.
Okay.
Um, you said in an email that there is a lot of
I
Yeah,
don't
sorry, there's a lot of what? Can you repeat the question?
yeah. You had said in an email that it's not, you feel more comfortable in a Daba and you don't feel so excluded or harassed because people come and chill out. It's like a place that builds community.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can explain it a little more what this means for Pakistan and for women especially.
Okay, so I mean um it's definitely, a man's space, because most of the people who are at Dhabas will be coming, between work or between their office, or they'll meet up there. A lot of construction workers, for example, a lot of rickshawalas and taxi drivers, they'll stop there, have chai, and it's sort of like, a break in your day. You're just taking some time off and just chilling. There's a lot of because of the way the dhaba is set up, it's very informal, right? It isn't like this is where one table goes and this is where another table goes, right? So, for example, when I go to a dhaba and if there's no one sitting there already, I'll just go to the guy and go like, oh, we're two people, and he'll take out two chairs and we just put them anywhere in that space. As more people come, they sort of just keep putting their chairs and tables around. So I think the fact that it isn't, a sort of space that's divided and marked by, oh, this is yours and this is mine. Also because it's cheap and you're not really. I feel like people in restaurants feel like they're entitled to a certain, certain privacy or certain noise level because they're paying for that commodity. It's not a commodity in the same way. People share tables a lot. I've shared tables with people too, and they'll be like, give me a cider or give me this, and there's a lot of back and forth going on that way. Or when the dhaba wala passes a cup of chai, he'll give it to one guy, will pass it to the guy at the next table. Just very small things. And then to add to that, because specifically in Karachi there are a lot more dhabas than there are in Lahore or Islamabad, and among the boys who I know, who are
Hello, sorry. Is it just me who cannot hear? Sorry.
No, I cannot. I cannot hear. It has a lot of breaks.
Oh, we had some interruptions. Nadia, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah? Lilia, can you hear Sadia?
Yeah, I can hear here, but it's not the best quality as before.
Okay, I cannot hear, sorry.
You cannot hear.
No.
It was a little bit better now. Vitotas, are you okay?
Yeah, but I cannot hear Sadia. But if you can hear, then maybe it's not the worst case.
I can hear here, but we can break and redial.
We could
No?
do the redial actually. Should we?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, then I will create another one and then we'll call you in a minute.
Okay. See.
Okay, and then maybe we can also present this scheme.
Okay.
Okay. Okay,